Madhava Kunda Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Gopinana Madhava Girivardhari Gopijana Madhava Girivardhari Sudanana Vraja Jana Randana Sudanana Vraja Jana Ranjana Bunatera Manachare Yamuna Tera Banachare Jaya Radhu Madhava Kunda Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Gopijana Balaba Girivardhari Gopijana Balaba Girivardhari Yasudhanana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yasudhanana Vraja Jana Ranjana Gunatera Manachare Tera Manachare Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramahansa also Tada Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada and the Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Jai Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Ichananda Shidway, the Ganadha, Shivasati Gaur, Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radhakrishna, Go Pikabanath, Saim Kunda, Radha Kunda, Giddy Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Maturadam Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shivati Dalasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Go. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, reading from Srimad Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharni Nivishesha Srinivadi. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 33rd chapter, text 12. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Pasyatschin Natya Vikshipta Kundala Tvusha Mandatam Gandhang Konde Sandadhatyaha Pradat Tambula Charvitam Akashaschinatya Vikshipta Kundala Tvishamandatam Gandam Gande Satadhatya Radhatambula Charvitam Kashaschinatya Vikshipta Kundala Tvishamandatam Gandham Gande Satadhatya Pradatambula Charvitam Kashaschinatya Vikshipta Kundalatve Shamandatam Gandham Gande Satadhatya Pradatambula Charvitam. Chits to a certain gopi, Natya by the dancing, Vikshipta shaken, Kundala whose earrings, Tvasha with the glitter, Mandatam adorned, Gandham her cheek, Gande next to his cheek, Sandadhatya who was placing, Pradat he carefully gave, Tambula the betel nut, Charvatam Jude. So translation, next to Krishna's cheek, one gopi put her own, beautified by the effulgence of her earrings, which glittered as she danced. Krishna then carefully gave her the betel nut he was chewing. Pretty. Next to Krishna's cheek, one gopi, please repeat, of course. Next to Krishna's cheek, one gopi put her own, beautified by the effulgence of her earrings, which glittered as she danced. Krishna then carefully gave her the betel nut he was chewing. So there's no purport by the servants of His Divine Grace of the Prabhupada, so we'll read the commentaries by Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur. One gopi, whose cheeks shone because of the reflection of her swinging earrings, touched her cheek to Krishna's cheek out of fatigue. Krishna gave her some tambula chewed by himself, offering it to her as he kissed her. Krishna in a special way, and a dot he gave. This is Saibya, the gopi referred to in the last chapter, 5th verse. And Jiva Goswami comments, because of the similar description of the gopi who was given his chewed betel nut, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:32-5, the gopi described in this verse must be Shaibya. She placed her cheek on Krishna's on the pretext of being tired from dancing. He put in her mouth, from his mouth, his chewed betel with great love, pradat. The genitive case, sandadhatyaha, is used as poetic license or to express deep in the meaning. Nacha vikshipta kundaladvikshamanditam gandham gande satadhatya pradatambulacharvitam. So omaganatimidandasya Jananjana Shalakya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigurvena Maha. So, one challenge that people have here who are in a conditioned state of existence is they project their own experiences upon this particular pastime. And if they do that, if you project your own experiences, it'll just increase your own lust. So it's very, very dangerous dealing with these particular subject matters without proper explanation to just keep us appreciating, but not really being able to fully integrate it until we actually come to the transcendental platform. So that's one comment I'd like to make. But I think even more important to me when I'm reading this, also, this is a subject matter we've been discussing recently. Not the subject matter of Krishna kissing the gopis. I have not been discussing that, believe me. I'm not that advanced. But a particular subject matter comes to mind, and that we have this gopi shaibya here. And the gopis, they have different parties, and they have different types of relationships, and they have different colors even, and they have different temperaments, just like you see even with Radharani's primary associates, Lita and Vishaka. They have completely different temperaments, isn't it? Lita is very, I don't want to say she's hot-headed, but that description is there. So when Krishna does something that upsets Radharani, she's ready to kill the guy. And Vishaka, she's more like empathic communication. She wants to get them back together. She's just thinking about his needs and her needs, and then getting them back together. So it's quite interesting, this variety. So what comes to my mind is the variety that we are experiencing in ISKCON. We've been discussing. Last night we had a discussion. It's not a super confidential discussion, because Prabhupada actually stated that the GBC should meet once a year, and he said you should discuss unity and diversity. It's interesting. I don't think we've ever discussed. Generally, it's we discuss how everybody has to toe the line, and as we also discuss unity and bureaucracy. And as bureaucracy tends to make its way into the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, then we tend to come to the point of that anyone who doesn't follow different rules, then they must be extruded from the Krishna Consciousness movement. This is actually a quite interesting phenomenon in sociology of organizations. You have closed organizations and open organizations, and you also have something called gatekeepers. Heard of this before? I'm sure Mother Irma has heard of this. I actually gave a whole seminar years ago, before any of you joined the Krishna Conscious movement, and it was based on a book called The Incestuous Organization. And I almost got kicked out of the GBC for giving that seminar, because I gave it to, not to the GBC, I gave it to the previous strategic planning team. It was just in North America at that time, and people got really angry. So I was presenting that if you have an organization that's too closed, everybody has to be a cloney of someone else, then you get all sorts of psychological problems in the members, and emotional problems, and literally even incestuous relationships, and groupthink, and of course it's interesting that also I've been studying psychology. I don't know how much I should bring this into class, but anyway, Maslow talks about group think and group psychology, or what's called herd mentality, and how that leads to so much dysfunction in society, and you see this in certain countries even, or certain political leaders who have their herd, make something great again. Anyway, so and you just can't deviate, or actually you get extruded. So, and then on the other hand, you have a completely open organization where anything goes, and then you have no vision, or you don't really accomplish, let's talk about a spiritual organization, then you don't accomplish anything. So there, it's interesting, you have to have a situation that you're flexible. Sometimes you open the gates, sometimes you don't open the gates, sometimes you open the gates. Just like at a cell. Let's talk about a cell right now, because this is one of my interesting subject matters I study quite often, cellular biology. The cells have all these portals in them. For those of you who don't know what a portal is, it's not something that go from one place in space to another place in space, but it's a little louder. I'm scary. You can't hear? If I get any louder, it's going to It's freaked me. I'm going to put my earplugs in. Anyway, so even to hear myself. So, okay. So, I have very sensitive ears. I mean, I can hear what people are saying 100 meters away. But anyway, so the cells have these little portals. And there's proteins, specific proteins, that really, it seems like I have a consciousness. They know when to open the portals and when to close the portals. And that's quite interesting, because when you have a protein, a messenger protein, let's say, messenger protein sends a message to you that it's time to salivate, for example. Then on the cell, it's really interesting how Krishna's arranged this, but it really reinforces your faith that God exists. Because nobody could actually possibly imagine that these different mechanisms or entities even would exist just simply because of chance. You know, we have a door here, and the door doesn't open itself when someone comes in. I mean, some doors do, actually, in supermarkets and things like that. But it didn't happen by chance. The door is there because I remember, buying the door, paying for the money, and being upset that the money was spent. And then there has to be a person to open the door. Anyway, so there's actually a plan behind the whole thing. So you have these portals, getting to the point. When something is supposed to leave the cell, the portal opens. Something is supposed to come into the cell. Some other proteins are supposed to come in, some of the messengers, or you have some food coming in. The food has to come in from the outside. Sometimes it comes through the membrane rather than the portal. But anyway, I'm not going to get into those details. So then the portal, literally, they have photomicrographs, microscopes, electron scanning microscopes that open up, that show this happening. It just opens up and then it closes. So in an organization like ISKCON, I don't know if this is appropriate for Bhagavatam class, but I guess it's talking about the gopis. They all work together, part of the same organization. Okay, connecting it. And they remain together, isn't it? I mean, this is a traveling party that we're talking about. Prabhupada talks about Krishna's traveling roadshow. And they travel, isn't it? They travel from one universe to another. It's not that Chandravali is saying, I'm tired of this stuff. That Radharani is always the favorite. I'm going to take another job here, So they stay unified. And they stay unified because they have a common purpose. And literally, practically, that common purpose is to please Radha and Krishna. And they're playful. So it's not like when we hear these things like one gopi becomes envious of another. It's like they're playing. They're enjoying. It's not like the envy in this world, or like the kissing in this world is just simply some physical interaction. But this is an exchange of love. It's not just like mundane betel, mundane lips or anything like that. So we have to be careful not to project our conception upon what's happening here. So anyway, so that keeps them together. What is that? Things fall apart where the center will not hold. Their desire to please Radha and Krishna. But still, there's a lot of variety in there. I mean, a tremendous amount of variety. So, what do we do in ISKCON? How do we keep ourselves together with all this variety and unity and diversity, as Srila Prabhupada said? So we have to figure, first of all, we have to think about what's the central point. What keeps us together before we start talking about the diversity. Because if we talk about the diversity first, then we'll just go off in all sorts of different directions. Because the diversity is discussed in the context of the unity. So it's interesting. So what keeps us together? Is it simply that we're devotees? Or we're members of this is a discussion we've been having, we're members of the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya. What keeps ISKCON, or what should keep ISKCON together, is that we are followers of the founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada did many things that are different from, and made many changes, and we discussed these things. Insofar as the standards of initiation, insofar as, who gets different mantras, Gayatri mantras specifically. Many things. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur changed many things. For example, previous to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you had this Siddha Pranali type of thing, right? That, you go to your guru, and you wouldn't need a Brahman thread, you just get your Siddha Deha, isn't it? You say that, let's just use one of the devotees here. Ishvara Puri, you took initiation, okay, your name is Ishwarini Purini, a gopi, and your dress in green dress, and your hair is blonde, and you have blue eyes, and your service is cooking sweet rice for the divine couple. I mean, so that's literally what was going on before. And it's bona fide. It's not that, we're not criticizing that process. But, I'm criticizing if I did that process with people, that would be a problem. But you had people, I was just listening, actually this morning I was listening to a memory that Brahmananda was, memories of Brahmananda and Prabhupada. And he was talking about how this one, Nitai, who was Prabhupada's Sanskrit editor, he left Prabhupada and went to join one of the Babajis. And he criticized that Prabhupada wasn't following this particular process, isn't it, of giving Siddha Pranali. I mean, we would probably get a lot more people in the Krishna conscious movement if I gave Siddha Pranali, isn't it? You'd have people lined up, Guru Maharaj will give you your spiritual identity, I think we could definitely get Krishna West or Krishna East or whatever together really quickly and get a lot of money. So, good strategy now that I think of it. So anyway, but Prabhupada, but Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, no, he didn't do that. And Prabhupada didn't do that. But then Prabhupada does things different than Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So how do you reconcile that the disciple does things differently than the spiritual master? Well, the way we reconcile is that not essential things, he changes some of the details. But it's interesting that what are considered details and what is considered essential is dependent upon whether one is working within the organization of the spiritual master, isn't it? Just like there are certain things that are details, but if one wants to be within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, those things now are not details. Certain things may or may not be details anymore. They become principles. Because principles means you don't change them. Like we chant Hare Krishna. That's definitely a principle for everybody, right? Unless you're a member of the Ramanuja Sampradaya, then you chant Om Namo Narayanaya. Yeah? Well, 16 rounds and taking a vow at initiation. Like Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, at least from what we've been discussing, he didn't have people like 16 rounds, you take a vow, you take initiation, four regulative principles. I mean, I guess when you're preaching to high-class people, you don't have to tell them to have not to have illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, no meat eating. I mean, I have that experience too when I'm giving initiation to some 85-year-old Indian lady. I don't really ask her to recite the four regulative principles. But in any case, there wasn't a vow to chant 16 rounds. Sometimes some of the acharyas in the past, they would say, you know, you pick out what number of rounds can you chant every day. That's a detail, isn't it? I mean, it's a detail. But in ISKCON, that the detail of how many rounds you chant every day becomes a principle. If it's a principle for being a member of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. I found that quite an interesting discussion. We have this committee that we discuss things several nights a week, keeps me up until midnight, because I can't sleep after that. Last night we had this discussion. But in ISKCON, certain things that, if one is part of ISKCON, but then what should those things be? And what is the leeway for those particular things? You know, some people will say, I mean, there was this one statement, and some people will say that we can't have women gurus because Prabhupada never appointed a woman guru. That's really stretching it. I mean, there's a lot of things Prabhupada never did. Prabhupada said, Prabhupada never let us have mobile phones either. Prabhupada never appointed gurus from India either. I mean, everyone who became a guru in the beginning was from the West. So you say, you know. So what can be changed, what can be stretched, and then you have different gurus sometimes who change different things in ISKCON. You know, some gurus have their disciples wait for 10 years for first initiation. Some gurus do different things, make their disciples vow at the time of initiation to serve their mission. Some gurus make their disciples vow to read an hour a day. Other gurus make their disciples chant 64 rounds on Ekadasi or 25 rounds on Ekadasi. I know that because in Fiji, Tamal Krishna Maharaj would actually make his disciples vow to chant 25 rounds a day on Ekadasi. So, you know, when I give initiation there, because everyone there is a follower of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I have to adhere to that same standard. Of course, I sort of adjusted a little bit. I said, try to. I changed it to try instead of you have to chant. 65. Well, I do say that. I don't make it 64. I said it would be a good idea if on some Ekadasis you would chant 64 rounds because it'll change your whole life. I do say that and initiate many initiations. So you have this wide variety of even requirements at initiation. And it's a challenge. And I'm not saying someone's right and someone's wrong. All I'm saying is it's observation. And so where do you draw the line? And then you even have temple presidents making different requirements for initiation. You know, 50% of your income. Not quite that much. But yes, there are some temples where there's a financial requirement for initiation. Not here. They do that. Or some temples impose more tests and more studies and more. You know, so you got all these varieties. And so it's really important. What I'm saying, because we have this committee that we discuss varieties from one angle of vision, you know, the varieties of requirements for initiation and mantras given at initiation. I'm seeing that perhaps the most important thing we can do in ISKCON right now is have this discussion of unity and diversity. Because, you know, we see there's many threats of splits in this God for a variety of purposes. Sometimes it's based on different countries, conservative versus liberal, and even dress codes come into question. How should a sannyasi dress? Should someone have neck beads? What about the Brahmin thread? Isn't it? And I'm not criticizing or saying that anything is good or bad with my statements. All I'm saying is that the discussion has to be there, because just like in Krishna's pastimes, they stay together. You got the left-handed gopis, the right-handed gopis. Shaiva, I believe, is a right-handed. She's one of Chandravali's gang. Yeah, she's equivalent to Vishaka. So you have someone like that, and they don't have to have a meeting how to stay together. I don't think so. But, they do love each other. And I'll prove that they do love each other by citing from the Lalita Madhava. Because what happens is that when Radharani, and of course Radharani becomes Satyabhama, and Rukmini is Chandravali. But Rukmini is actually missing her sister, Radharani, isn't it? In the Lalita Madhava, which is really interesting. They're all, by one means or another, transported to Dwarka. But Rukmini is first. That is, Chandravali is first. And she is missing all of her associates there, who basically, many of whom she's competing with. And then when Radharani comes to Satyabhama, she doesn't recognize her. So she's so she's really opposed to her. In fact, she wants to just send her away, because she finds out that Krishna is sneaking in New Vrindavan, not West Virginia. Well, it is New Vrindavan, isn't it? Nava Vrindavan. Krishna is sneaking in this replica of Vrindavan that's been constructed by Vishwakarma. And he's having this relationship where they're in caves, looking at pictures of their their pastimes on the cave. A beautiful play by Srila Rupa Goswami, Lita Madhava. And she has all these plans how to send Radharani, how to send, she doesn't know it's Radharani, Satyabhama, away. But she's still missing her friends, even though she's in the opposing party. And so finally, when it's discovered that Satyabhama is Radharani, she's very happy. She gives permission to Krishna to marry her. So that shows, this Lalita Madhava actually shows to a large extent the attitude of the gopis towards each other, even the gopis in opposing parties towards each other while they're in Vrindavan, even though that's maybe not so much manifest in the Vrindavan pastimes, or at least to our eyes. It is manifest, but to our eyes, it gets manifest in the Lalita Madhava. So anyway, there's love between each other. So in unity and diversity, here's my point. In unity and diversity, the devotees have to have love for each other. Then you can actually understand what is love for each other, love for Prabhupada. Of course, that's the central focus. And then you can actually have unity and diversity. Without the emotional component, if it's simply a philosophical component. Let me give an example of a discussion I had with Chaitanya Charan in a podcast, which is actually online right now. He asked me how to solve this problem between India and the U.S. There's many different things that are stimulating the, I wouldn't say animosity, but the disagreements between the U.S. or the Western world and India. The Vaishnavi Diksha Guru is one of them. Another one happens to be treatment of a particular sannyasi. I'm not going to get into the details about this. So my point to him was that, first of all, we have to develop loving relationships with each other. And the way to do that is not posting different philosophical statements, taking quotes from Srila Prabhupada, quotes from Shastra, and fighting each other with these quotes, which is a common phenomena that we see. But to actually meet with each other and understand other person's point of view. I said I can solve. I mean, I'm sure, not me, but I'm sure with this strategy, you know, the conflicts between Vaishnavas could be solved. I stated that the devotees, let's say, I don't want to say on one side, but devotees with diverse opinions should meet 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 with each other and just listen to each other and hear why a person feels the way he or she does. And then share that, and even maybe switch roles, you know, role playing, so to speak, and understand the emotional component behind each point of view. With the gopis, the emotional component is they simply want to please Radha and Krishna. They simply want to please Krishna. It's the deep, deep emotional component. So if devotees can actually meet with each other as devotees, not like big committees, you know, 1,000 people like judging someone who comes before them. What did you do with the standard of initiation? Why are you making people wait 10 months for initiation? You know, that's rather intimidating. And obviously it doesn't create relationships. But our movement, Prabhupada said, is pushed forward by loving relationships. And we find this, of course, in the Upadeshamrita. What is it? Dadati pratagranati guyam akyati prichati bhunkte bhujate chaiva. You know, sitting down with each other. And, you know, and I remember there was a GBC meeting once where it would try to impose upon leaders from a particular part of the world that you have to accept that GBC is the ultimate UMA and the ULA. I don't know if you know what that means. Ultimate managing authority, ultimate legal authority. You know, they're just like, the agenda was there rather than just like meeting as individuals. Because we are ultimately individuals, and if we get into this group think, it actually will tear us apart. You know, my group, your group. We have to appreciate each and every devotee's bhakti, and then we can arrive at certain standards, ultimately. And, you know, basically, like Prabhupada, I remember Prabhupada was talking to one devotee who should remain nameless, who didn't want to work with the GBC. And then Prabhupada said, you work with him directly. You know, Prabhupada made all sorts of adjustments. This was in Hawaii, of course. It was Siddhartha. So we have to be liberal and conservative, but actually have a heart of a Bengali mother. That's probably nice. Manage like an Englishman and have a heart of a Bengali mother. Anyway, sorry I didn't talk about the gopis, but that's beyond my ability to understand. So, we have about 0 time. Thank God.
Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham
mandar ako di kamania Vishesha Shobha
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Asa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham
Jamani Gorabhamani Jage Pakata Samoha Nayana Sante Ngena Nagara Pajay Tatai, tatai, machanako, kana kana tari, janjero no. Preme dalla dalla zara anga, charane no pura vajay. Mokunamad Vadyadavahare Molena Polo Re Vatanapare Nicheni Navashe Gelo Rate Divachasiare Rashake Manavateo Hayaki Koro Baba Nakeo Krishna Bachile, Yashoda Sutta, Chanraman Pari Vela Che. Tapana Uela Yasta Dina Galo Moleva e Piasta Dabe Kano Away Alla Sagoe Napachare Dayara Jay Jannagatsa Kahanana Vida Pipa da Par Namachaya Korea Tana to me Yakaka Pana Kache Kalyana Sadana Kam Jakateya Se Maturanam Avijiti Mira Tapana Rupe Rikagane Virache Shana Namashuda Kulia Pad Churaya Makat Pino the Pan Namapina Kicho Pikurara Shona Povana Mache Bagay, Dui Jamane Goramani Jage. Pakata Sama, Loyal Sate, Kila Naga Ravache. Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Samenitina Mene Saraswati Deve Gauravat Dikracharane Nivasesha Shunyama Deva Sacharane Sacharane Nivasesha Sunyavati Vasacharati Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Ja, Jana Shiva Sati, Golaka Kwenda. Jaya Kwenda, Jana Shiva Sati, Golaka Kwenda. Hare Krishna, Ajay Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ram Ram Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya. What? Jaya Rane, Jaya Rane, Jaya Rane, Jaya Radhe. Jaya Sri Radhe. Jai Om Vishnupad. Paramahamsa Paramahansa all to the Shima. Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premse Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasiti Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giddy Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Maturidam Ki Jai, Jagadasami Ki Jai, Manamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Lasideva Ki Jai, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious. All glorious to Shri
Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahunadnita Sarva Shakti Tatrapita Nihamita Smaranena Kala Etad Drishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midvishamiha Janina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarora Pi Suhishuna